Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Stardom Show. And today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Raj Gopal, author of the book Pursuit of an Identity. Let's hear why he wrote this book and the reasons behind this book and the big takeaways from this book. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to the author, Raj Gopal. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I would like to know uh, what is this book about? Let's start there.
The book is about, basically it's about entrepreneurship. The idea was people like me who have spent about considerable time in the industry, including me, were contemplating whether should we attempt being an entrepreneur or not. And that is when I thought, when I was able to cross over and then make up my mind and become an entrepreneur, then I realized that a lot more people can do the same. And it's not as, yes, it requires a little bit of planning, but it's not impossible for us to become successful entrepreneurs. Especially most of us in leadership positions in large corporates, when we have been able to set up businesses and run P&Ls for many of them, it doesn't, why we should not be in a position to do it for ourselves was always something which I was thinking. But then in my case, I made up my mind and I quit my job and then got into it. But many of them whom I know are contemplating. So they possibly will become an entrepreneur only when they are compelled to. Like either they lose their jobs or they have no other choice and that's how they become an entrepreneur. Which I keep telling them, but that's not the right way. So then I thought, let me share my experience for those who are contemplating, who might possibly get some amount of encouragement to look at my experience of why and how I did that. And most of them possibly have the same constraints what I had in terms of financial resources or how to go about planning your enterprise and how did I succeed. And so if I can share my template, possibly they'll be able to at least have one of the success templates, because not many startups really succeed. From the startup statistics I am aware of, generally people say around 5 to 6 startups every 100 is all that it succeeds. So if we have been successful, I thought at least let me share my parameters or whatever metrics I had as to how I went about planning with the same constraints what normally any of my colleagues had. And if I am able to succeed, at least if we can reflect that on the book, anybody wanting to become, and even if one person, it helps and then it succeeds, I think it's worth it. So that's the reason I thought let me share my experience in a book.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. And I wanted to, you just said you quit your job and started. So, what happened actually? Like, how did the transition happen?
Transition, see, I was always used to being on the business side of the jobs I have performed. I have always taken risk in my job changes because I used to go for new geography, expansion in organizations I work for. I went to Australia where my office was first time set up. When I used to work for Satyam Computer Services, there was no office in Australia. When I went there, I was the first guy to go and set up an office. So I was used to going into new geographies where we had no presence and set up the entire process and then go about convincing customers and successfully build business in those regions. So this is something which I was anyway, personally, I used to enjoy doing it. And I have gone even to Europe where I didn't even have language familiarity. When I was in Germany, I didn't even know German. And when I went to Germany, English was still not very commonly known in German. So I had difficulty, but still we were able to succeed. So getting into these things were not an issue for me. But to still make up my mind to quit my well-paid corporate job and then trying to become an entrepreneur with the unknown of whether we'll succeed or not was always, there. But then somewhere I convinced myself. I think what added to what was compelling at the time where I made up my mind was my last job which I had was a little boring because it was a little. I don't think there was room for much of creativity there. It was a very large corporate, and then so I had my own very clear process, laid down process, and I was responsible only for that. So that made me a little, that was constraining. And what you can do, but you are not allowed to do because someone else will do something else. So you do this, someone else does that, and someone else will do something else. So I think that was not very satisfying. That made me decide, okay, I think we should do something. So that is the reason I decided to. So that was also a compelling factor. Not that that was the reason why I had to become an entrepreneur, but that triggered the decision making in terms of making it faster.
Guys, if you are bored, you could always go to Netflix or you can start a company and become successful like Raj Gopal. Secrets are here. Perspectives are here, I would say. Rather.
Yeah, that's right.
Perspectives are. Sir, who should actually read this book and why? Who exactly have you written this book for?
Primarily, I wrote it for those budding entrepreneurs who are contemplating whether they want to become an entrepreneur or not. Because most of them, especially people with jobs, see, people without knowing anything to become an entrepreneur, I won't advise, because they don't even know how the industry works. They will not have any connects. They have no access to the ecosystem. So it will be even more difficult. You just come out of college and you want to become an entrepreneur. It depends again if you're in a B2B or a B2C or all that. But still, it is not advisable because you don't have any knowledge about how the industry works. So I would prefer or assume that the book is primarily for those who have some work experience and possibly think that they are cut out to take risk, and they may not know how, or they may not have the courage to decide. This book possibly helps them to get ideas as to what is more, because most of the entrepreneurs will not have access to a lot of resources. The resources are always constrained, financial resources or people resources or any of such resources. So how do you then plan yourself in terms of making with the constraint on scarce resources to plan something where you'll be able to succeed? So this is exactly what I did when I started out. That is what I have reflected. So I hope that any of such people will get encouraged and know what is the single most thing first to consider when you become an entrepreneur, and then draw the map down in terms of how do you want to go about. So I think primarily it is for those contemplating entrepreneurs.
Perfect.
Somebody who has some work experience are the ones who will, I hope, because once Fidrox was a little established, I know a lot of my friends from the industry who were coming and talking to me. Many of them came. Many of them wanted to know how I did that and how I planned. They wanted to, but they never took a call. Whenever they feel insecure about the job, they'll come. The moment that insecurity is gone, they'll go back to comfortably doing what is there. Not that they are not talented. That's what I keep telling them. Many of them whom I know are much more talented than me. They have better business plans or better insight onto many things. So I can't make a comparison. But they don't make up their minds. So it's about trying to help them, saying that if I can do it, they can definitely do it.
Right. As they say, the best time to get access to a map is before you start your journey, because this is like a map, kind of a map. And let's also understand the title a little bit more. So, Pursuit of an Identity. It's a very interesting and a different title. So, can you please explain why you chose this title and what is the reason behind this Pursuit of an Identity as a title?
No, Pursuit of an Identity has, the reason I went with the title was primarily because one is in terms of building an identity for my enterprise myself. So we are trying to create an identity for my own enterprise, which today we are completing 10 years. And we have created an identity for ourselves in the identity management space. Incidentally, we are, our key focus area is identity management. We are in the identity domain. So it will coincide with the domain we are in. And for an entrepreneur, he is trying to create an identity for his own enterprise. So that will be there. Third thing, the ways that, as an author, what I'm trying to say is that I realize a lot more about myself as an identity, about what I can do in terms of capabilities, etc. Also in the process as an entrepreneur. So all these three things put together, the Pursuit of an Identity was something which was very apt. That's the reason I went with the title.
Excellent, excellent. Although we'll suggest everybody to go read this book to understand this book in entirety, because now we have you as an expert, as an author with us on this interview. I would like to give maximum value for our viewers here by asking you what are the 2-3 biggest takeaways from this book, if I have to ask you that.
See, the biggest takeaway is the biggest takeaway is that it has one successful template, which is, I would say, my template, which I have, which is what has made us successful. So that is one key takeaway. So there could be many templates like those, but this is yet one more template. And the other takeaway is also about operational efficiency. which is also very critical for a startup in terms of how disciplined you are in terms of using your financial resources or people resources, and then how do you identify how do you create value, which is another very critical thing. See, today the market is flooded with too many players. Market has many options. The customers has many options in terms of what he wants, etc. and all that. In a crowded market like that, how do you create a niche for yourself? So it all depends on your ability to create a value. See, today commodity has no value because we can't be a commodity player. See, the moment you choose your enterprise, if you want to be a commodity player, then it's about muscle. Then you should have a lot of financial muscle. You should either have geographical muscle in terms of distribution, or these are the things. If I want to be, for instance, a distributor of some goods, then I should be in a position to stock, which means I should be capable of investing crores of money, which is not what I wanted to do. So today, if you look at it, I have invested a very small money and I have created a value. Now today, the net worth of an organization is much, much than what it could have been. So what it means is that at the end of the day, creating or identifying a value to the customer is most critical. And a customer will listen to you only when he knows that you have a solution.
Exactly.
So you're bringing value to the table. Otherwise, why will you want to? If I'm going to do the same thing what anybody else does, then I will not even get time. I may get time from those who may know me and they may want to see me. And they may also help me by saying, okay, buying from him, I'll buy from you. But I can't expand the business. If I have to go beyond and a lot of more customers and across the world, then I should be measured by what value I bring to the table. Though it becomes important that creating value is very important to become an successful entrepreneur. If you don't create value, I don't think you'll be that successful.
That is the 95% who fail.
That's where most of them fail. And that is one part of it. Then how do you deliver the value? There again, it's very critical because large enterprises have their own dynamics and DNA. And we focus only on large enterprises because that's where I see value that I can bring to the table only for the large enterprises. Small and medium businesses might not see the value the way the large enterprises see in what I do. And that was by purpose. That is how I designed positioned myself to address large enterprises. So if I have to do that, then large enterprises have certain gaps in their processes and business, and there are compelling reasons why they may need some solutions, which the small, medium businesses may not. So you need to figure out the landscape you are going to address. And all that has been, to a minute detail has been worked out. So unless you think through a lot of things and then identify where the gaps are and then come out with a solution, no customer will be interested if it is going to be something yet another same thing. Somebody else is already vending. You're also trying to compete with them. Then it's a price war, or you don't get appreciated because you're not doing any great value for him. It's just that you're trying to ask for some business. So that may not be a better way to succeed, is my view. So we went about. We knew the gaps. We knew large enterprises where the gaps are. At least I knew that. So I had to be made up in terms of wanting to see how we can build and provide the solution. So once we started building, it was not a very difficult job in talking to a customer saying that these are your issues and I will be able to solve this. And this is what we have to solve it. The moment you have somebody has a problem, you want to say, I have a solution. Why will I not want to give you time?
Exactly.
So then naturally give you time. Then when you have a discussion, look at it. I mean, my first customer was a very large conglomerate, but he had no choice. Because there is no solution available at all alternatively. So he obviously said, okay, let's go ahead. And then that's how my first order came from a very large company.
Excellent.
And then once he gained confidence, my first customer is still with us after 10 years in a much more stronger way in terms of connect, etc. and all that. So most of them are global customers. And so creating value is, I think, is the most important part. And then the rest of it can be redrawn. So the moment you have, what exactly you're going to do. And once you start doing that, then you can possibly expand your portfolio, wanting to do many things, which maybe others will do because they may expect you to do a turnkey. That's what it happened in our case, because the moment I went after value, but the customer wanted me to do the entire turnkey of it, which we said, okay. So we now do turnkey also. But my point of entry is the value I bring to the table.
Excellent.
And that I think is, I would say, one of the key takeaways in terms of what is what, and then which I have stressed in the book,
In the book.
that you need to look at creating value, which is primarily innovation. So, and then as I was saying, one is creating the value or identifying the value what to be delivered. Then delivery is also a process, because large companies have large deployment, maybe sometimes multiple geographies and all that. So you need to know how to manage a large program of delivery and all that, which is also another key skill. Otherwise, you will fail. One is to identify the value and create that value to offer. Then how are you going to deliver the value is also very critical. So that amount of thought process of making sure all these are well thought, and you prepare the organization to make sure that you, while you have developed a solution, you also have a delivery mechanism to deliver it and then maintain it to sustain. I think these are key critical success factors. Otherwise, if you have the value but you don't know how to deliver it, you still fail. You're a great delivery guy, but you don't know the value, it doesn't well. So you need all these. One is creating value, another is delivering it, and then maintaining and sustaining and enhancing it. Because what happens, we are all in a world where technology keeps changing. Something keeps changing. Yeah, business is also dynamic. So naturally the requirements keep changing. Today you buy something and then it is not forever. So 2-3 years later, in the IT industry, people are compelled to, whether you like it or not, you have an iPhone 10, you have an iPhone 14, you can't use iPhone 10 forever.
Exactly.
The OS will slow down, etc. and all that. So you are compelled to buy a new hardware. Similarly, anything you do in the IT industry, there is always a change. So we need to have that mechanism of, now for instance, AI has become a big thing. So if you don't have AI penetration into what we do, and how are we going to integrate and offer to the clients, again you will fail. I might have succeeded so far, but it's a continuous exercise of trying to make sure that I continue to enhance, integrate, accommodate and embrace and then adapt. It's a continuous exercise. It's not that I did something and I succeeded and I can sit back and then, it will keep, no. It is a continuous exercise. That is only a starting point, that I have succeeded in doing what I did. But to continue to succeed, you need to continue to keep innovating. So that is all. Those are the things which I have emphasized in the book.
In the book. So how do a reader read this book? Like start from the beginning and go all the way down, or is there like can they jump into any specific sections? How is it structured?
It is. See, the book is very simple. It's not a very exhaustive book. I have not pondered into unwanted sections. It has hardly 5-6 sections, very clearly classified, and it's very methodical and very sequential. So I think anybody should go through the sequence.
Sequencing is better. So now, after someone reads this book, what would be their next or the first step after reading this book? What should they do next?
I mean, if they're contemplating to become an entrepreneur or not, I think they will get some sort of confidence, is my expectation. And once they get the confidence, they at least they know one template as to how I went about doing it, and then which they can also think about it. See, nothing like an innovation. If you look at all the success stories in Europe, when I lived in Europe, I was wondering, because for someone from India, when I went to Europe first time in 2001, I was thinking all very large, like Siemens, Bosch, all large companies are there, etc. All that. Yeah, there are some large companies like them, but Central Europe, continental Europe is full of small to medium establishments. If you look at their economy is majorly a small to medium economy, not large enterprises. You have one handful of Siemens or Bosch or Lufthansa or any of these very large national companies. Otherwise, there are many successful small to medium businesses in continental Europe. I'm not specific to German. So look at any of these brands, big brands like even Bosch or Siemens, where I used to work for Siemens. Werner von Siemens is the man who found Siemens. Siemens is the surname of the gentleman. The company is named after him. And he was an innovator. So, in fact, the family hardly owns anything in Siemens now. It's completely professional, trust managed, etc. and all that in the similar template like Tata's. Look at the kind of innovation Siemens has done. So, you look at any European company, there is innovation behind that for the success. This is what I realized in my stint in Germany. I spent about 9-10 years there. And I've seen, you must be aware of the pharma company. When I was there and trying to go to them, they are so proud about how their humble beginnings were. So when you go to their offices, you will find a huge reception about Novartis, how they arrived, how they became a company and all that. You will not believe it. The Novartis is a company which is known for the diabetes insulin.
Mhm.
The way why insulin was innovated by them, or rather found out a drug for diabetes by way of getting insulin, is because a man, one rich guy in Sweden, his wife dies of
Oh,
diabetes, and he is heartbroken, and then he decides to fund research to know why people die of diabetes, and that's how the insulin came about.
fantastic.
And Novartis today, their name to their fame is largely because of insulin, and today they are, I think, the de facto IP owner for that. And then so every company like that has some background story as to some compelling reason as to why they got into some innovation and how the innovation led their growth. So these are things which it was amazing for me to see. Unlike in India, where most of them try to repeat a template, you find some successful template of someone, they try to repeat the same thing, copy the same thing, and trying to compete with them on price or maybe a region or a geography or a scale or any of those. I don't think one should do that. There are enough and more possibilities of innovation, and they should do that. That will be much. You will command a premium. You will also be able to get that respect that you have brought some value to the table. That's a better way to create value than trying to go and repeat or ape some existing model. So these are things which insights which helped me when I was trying to go about looking at this. I was very clear when I started my enterprise that I will never be a generalist. So if I'm trying to be an enterprise, I need to be a specialist. I need to do something which is niche, which is special. Otherwise, why will anybody come to me? If I'm going to do what Infosys does or TCS does or Wipro does, why will anybody look at me? Because scale matters. They're able in a position to scale, which I will not be able to do. There's no point in doing it. There are a lot of people who have attempted that and failed. Not everybody will be in a position to succeed. So there's no point in aping them. So I don't do anything what they do. I don't do any outsourcing of any software development or maintenance or any of those. So we went about creating a value, and we are stuck to that. Just because we are successful today, we have not diluted our focus. We are still sticking to our focus on the domain and the value, because there is a lot of things to be done in the same domain. In the adoption and continuous enhancements to many things, a lot more things can be done. So I don't think we will ever get into a generalization phase at all. Even if you grow a little more bigger, I think we'll still stay focused on a domain and specialization. So all those things are reflected in the book, which is what I think people should consider when they start.
I had one other question. The title of the book has the word identity in that, and there's an iconography also of identity. So, what are the latest innovations that are coming up in this particular? Because you are also in the identity management industry. So, what do you see as the new innovations that are coming in this sector, in your industry? Now, you are also a thought leader because you have written a book about it. So, what do you think?
No, see, identity today has become very compelling because of the security situations in the world. Now the problem is you're going back to possibly, like what you said, the design cover which you showed about the face, which is more of a thumbprint.
Yes.
It is going back to that, or unfortunately we were unable to depict what you call as a facial recognition kind of an algorithm. So this was what we found, and then we went with that part of it, which is easy, better, because most of them will be able to understand this than the facial recognition part of the design. So today there is a lot of, since there is no way other than using technology to validate, because we are all in a wired or a wireless world or whatever. So you are sitting in India doing something in the US, someone is sitting in the US, but your accounts are handled by someone in India, maybe in a BPO. So now how do you identify and validate identities? Now you have Digiyatra in the airports. Now there is some interface to the Aadhaar to validate that you are so and so too. So there are a lot of things which is getting validated. So it is now it's a lot of penetration is happening in terms of identity validation. So identity validation, I think it's again going to be right now we are in there's a huge scope even to what we are doing right now to make sure that every sector and every industry vertical starts using it. It is still a long way to go. And after that, further innovation, and people who are already using it might obviously want to see, your incidents will trigger a new innovation. I can't go about imagining things. Now, for instance, even this, when we started Vidrox, it is because it's an incident led. Now, you go and tell to somebody, I want you to implement all this. Why will you want to? Unless he has a need for it. The need is normally triggered with some incidents. Now, let's assume you have a house and you are peacefully living. For some reason, you are out for a vacation, and then there is some thief has broken down. That's when you think of putting up a CCTV to at least have a footprint. Now, at least you know who came, how they came, who went, and in the event, if you can cover or capture all their faces, etc., at least you know something to give to the police or any of those. Otherwise, so these incidents will lead you to do possibly see how you can manage. Same thing for large enterprises. Incidents will lead to help address it by creating solutions to address them. And that's one rider. The other one is that large enterprises have compliances to meet. Now, the problem is the governance model compels them to look at compliances. And compliances means auditable data. So, the moment you have auditable data, then you need a footprint. You need to have data. You need to make sure that these are available in case of an incident. So, it's not that you have to wait for an incident, but in case of an incident, you should have implemented something where you'll be able to access that quickly. So, these are the drivers for us to possibly get into it. So, I don't think there is an end to this identity innovation, because I'm sure at the moment what we are doing, I'll give you an example. Until COVID, people were using thumbprint, what you're seeing in that's the cover design, right? COVID obviously made people, if you touch someone who has a COVID infection, and if you're doing, touching the same thing, there's a possibility of you getting that, because unknowingly you may you do like this or wherever, or you can inhale or whatever. So the facial recognition replaced the thumb impression. During COVID. So people stopped using your typical attendance or any of those things, or double factor authentication, where people used to use thumb as a identity validation, got replaced with facial. Because there you don't have to touch anything. The camera looks at you and validates you. So these are the things, so the COVID was responsible for migrating from thumb to face. Now face has become, when we started, we were one of the earliest companies to use facial recognition technologies. And we did the Digiyatra, what you see, the pilot was something which we did that in 2017.
Oh, wow.
And demonstrated to the Airport Authority of India, and then eventually it got rolled out, and then Digiyatra was what you see in the market today. So those days, the facial recognition technology was very expensive. The licenses were very expensive, algorithms were very expensive. Today, the prices are 1/100th of it. So prices have come down. The economies of scale has improved because the applications are many. So the market is big. So everybody knows that they stick to those prices, it will never sell. So it has been made more affordable. And there are various kinds of algorithms for different kinds of applications, where you don't need very stringent security requirement or very fast enhancement, etc. You don't need a very large complex algorithm. Let's simple attendance. Why do you need a very expensive algorithm?
True.
So you don't need. So there are simple, licenses available for facial adoption, validation, and then letting you in. But something which is very critical, there are let's
More
say
layers into that.
layers. So it has been made more affordable. Economies of scale has improved. So that way the innovation is all led by incidents.
Excellent.
So the more incidents you are exposed to, you get you can mature your solution in terms of addressing that and having all that. It all depends on how you build a solution, because most of the time what happens is that there are unique cases, use cases. For instance, I was in Tata Steel a few years ago, where there was a unique problem, and they actually said, how do we solve this? Now there is no ready-made solution for that. So we came about, built a solution which is like stitching together a combination of some 3-4 different aspects of it to make things difficult to happen. So that actually brought down the incidents in about close to 90-95% of it, because the fact that it's auditable or it is traceable. So people were aware of it, and so they didn't want to. So that I think is so incidents actually drive innovation, I would say. So we obviously, the more you are exposed to the all kinds of these incidents in verticals, the more mature you can build as a solution and then or rather meaningful value to your clients. So you need to stay put and then be alert on understanding what's happening in the industry, so that you build solutions which actually matter.
Excellent. Thank you for that nice roundup of the entire outlook for the industry.